Welcome to Jumpstart Your Career Journey, hosted by Paul Sandhu and Letitia Robertson.
Hello, and thank you for joining Jumpstart Your Career Journey. My name is Letitia Robertson, and I will be your host. And today I will be sharing 16 job interview red flags that you shouldn't avoid. Let's see. Let's find out exactly what the definition of a red flag is. So let me look that up really quick. And so it says a red flag is a warning sign that suggests there may be a problem, risk, or unhealthy behavior. It doesn't always mean something is definitely wrong, but it signals that you should pay closer attention before moving forward. So red flags are not just in relationships, they can be with anything. So I will be giving you 16 red flags not to avoid when it comes to job interviews. Okay. So number one is constant rescheduling and disorganization. Rescheduling once or twice, that may be acceptable. But if there is three or more, that's something that you should pay attention to, because that really kind of means that the company isn't very organized. They don't pay close attention to their schedule when scheduling appointments and things. I mean, we understand that things come up, but for like one or two times, that's acceptable. But three or more, that shows disorganization. The other number two is disrespecting others. Now, does your interviewer speak disrespectfully of their various coworkers? That's something that you should pay close attention to, because that kind of contributes to the culture of the environment, and that's not an environment that you would want to work in. Number three is values conflict. So meaning if they value things and don't tend to issues with the company, and they don't tend to they don't tend to resolve them, it's more of a they allow it to escalate. That's definitely a red flag that you would like to look out for. So these are small things that you kind of should pay attention to when it comes to the culture of a new employer or a place that you're interviewing. The fourth one is lack of clarity or consistency in answers to your questions. So, like for instance, if you were to ask, how often do you let's see, how often do you anticipate overtime? Now, if they're very wishy-washy about a situation like that, that kind of shows that, one, they're not really knowledgeable of their workflow, or their workload, and that can be a conflict with your work-life balance. So that is something you definitely want to look out for. Number five is bait and switch. So, for instance, they tell you you're applying for an executive director, but you find that out that once you started, you're doing it, or no, I won't even say once you've started. Let's say as you start answering more questions, asking more questions, there's things that lead to a different position. Their responses speak of a different position. So that's something that you really want to look out for, because, you have a career goal. So you're looking forward to growing your career in a typical position, and that's why you apply for the job, and then it turns out to be something else. So that's something you definitely want to look into, and you don't want to avoid inappropriate questions or comments. So things that are offensive, especially like things like what's your dating like, or something that's pretty sexist, like um women belong in the kitchen, little comments like that. That's definitely inappropriate. So that's something that you really want to pay attention to. Uh, the number 7, I would say, is a lack of connection. So if the interviewer isn't really engaging, they're so blasé about, the interview process, you that's really not something that a place you really want to work, because I mean, think about it. You're gonna be spending most of your time with the person 8 or more hours a day, so you definitely want a connection, not like you need to know their personal lives, but you know you kind of mesh, if for lack of a better word. It's kind of that type of thing. um Number 8, I would say, is resistant to change. I mean, our world is forever changing, so you know there are things that you're going to have to change and adapt to, so that the company can grow. So if the interviewer is resistant to change, you know their mindset is just stuck one way, that can be very difficult to deal with. um Number 9 is, like I said, an excessive number of interviews. I understand some places will have, like, the first interview, you're meeting with the recruiter, and then maybe the second interview, you're either meeting with the director, or it's like a panel interview. So the team that you would potentially be working with. So, but if it's like constant, you're you're meeting with the recruiter, then this director, then that director, and that's not really, it's really not, to be honest, sufficient. I mean, you're couldn't you have looked at your schedule and had all these people at one time, so that I don't have to keep coming back? I mean, it shows a lack of um professionalism. To be honest, it shows a lack of professionalism. um Number 10, exploding offers. So exploding offers mean, like, they're really not giving you much time to make a decision. They're like telling you, "Oh, we need a response within 24 hours." There typically is some type of underlining issue with that. Why are you now such in a hurry to fill this position? Like, what's the urgency? I can't at least have 48 hours to think about this. I mean, it's a life decision. So, that's something that you definitely want to pay attention to. Oh, and this is a really big one here. High staff turnovers. Um, but that typically, it's like you're thinking, why is it that you can't keep anyone? To be honest, um that's definitely what you really want to think about, because that kind of speaks to the culture of the company, because it could be a toxic environment that you really don't want to be a part of. Um, the next one, mandatory overtime. So I kind of touched on this a bit earlier, because if there's mandatory overtime, it kind of speaks to um them, like I said, the work-life balance thing, because you're and you're not understanding, the supervisor is not really understanding the workload, but and sometimes things aren't distributed, assignments aren't distributed evenly. Everything is, stuck on one person. So that's definitely not really good. Number 13. Now this is a big one. Money matters. So, in other words, okay, you look at the job description, you found it on some job board. It states that you will be paid, let's for instance say hourly. You will be paid maybe $25 an hour, or it states $30 an hour, but then they want to pay you $25 an hour. Why is it not the financial, that kind of speaks to their financial stability, you're offering you because you want the cream of the crop, but you're really not, you're not paying that, all because you don't really have the company itself doesn't really have financial stability. Number 14 is lack of transparency. Just say what you mean and mean what you say. Always be clear and straight, so that when you're hiring folks, there's no surprises once they start. So that if there's a lack of transparency, there may be something they're hiding up their sleeve. So you really want to pay attention to that. And like this kind of goes hand in hand. The interviewer gaslights you, so which is a form of manipulation. They use to confuse you and make you second guess what you know. So that type of thing. For example, let's say you are a seasoned marketer with 5 years in the director role, but during the interview, the hiring manager might say something like, I see you more in a junior role. Your experience is with a different kind of company and doesn't really translate. So that's kind of like they're trying to manipulate you to take a lower, I guess, a lower opportunity. And that kind of plays a part of what I said with the money matters thing. They could possibly be having financial instability, and so they're trying to gaslight you so that you'll take the role and do the work, and then I guess save them out of their financial crunch. And my final one is my final red flag that I'd like for you to, I mean, there's more, but I wanted to give you 16. Microaggressions are thrown your way during the process. So microaggressions, although not commonly used to describe microassaults on people of color, are used to describe slights against a marginalized group. So it could be like race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, that type of thing. So you really need to pay attention to those, because it kind of speaks, like I said before, a toxic work environment. And if you're spending 8 or more hours a day, 40 plus hours a week with a person, you really don't want to, work in that type of environment. It's very toxic. You really don't have, I mean, you're going home stressed and uneasy because, you're feeling like these are things that you really have to deal with, because you work for this company. So, those are the red flags that I say that, I suggest that you don't avoid when interviewing. These suggestions will go a really long way. But if you like more suggestions, and you need help with making those decisions, or just coaching in general, or writing your resume to prepare for a job interview, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We have quite like at least 30 plus years in this industry, and we can definitely help. Okay, bye.